Ryan,
Hello, my friend.
what's up, dude?
It's good to see you.
Yeah, man. Episode 5.
Yeah, I'm losing count, which is kind of nice. I'm
It is
like,
kind
I'm
of
like,
nice.
wow, we've done so many that I'm hard to keep track of.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
we're sort of hitting a groove here.
I think it's 5. Yes.
Yeah. So, what are we doing today? We're doing Inhabit Your New Year.
Yeah, it seemed like a good time to do that.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, as I've been talking with you, it's something that we all think about, I think, this time of year. We look towards that new year. The holidays are coming around, and a lot of times we get a little extra time, or even if we don't have extra time, uh, I don't know, the winter, the holidays, or something about it, at least in the culture in the US, where we get a little more contemplative and reflective and start also looking toward the new year. So it seems good to have an episode where we talk about that.
Yeah, I think that whenever there's a change in the sort of the lower right quadrant, even
Yep.
if it says something as simple as, the calendar moving into a new year, we take that as sort of an opportunity to use that transition as a way to an opportunity to also change our own interiors.
Yes.
I think that when it comes to the end of the year, we sort of naturally fall into this reflective space, right? Where we sort of naturally start to review our previous year and kind of imagine
Mm-hmm.
the year to come. And we kind of
Mm-hmm.
take inventory
Yep.
of our
Yep.
victories and our regrets and all of our decisions and how those have sort of culminated for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as integralists, I think that we're kind of used to always moving forward in a certain kind of way. I think that,
Yes.
people with this integral sensibility start to get, I don't know, a little bit restless when they feel
Yeah.
like they've kind of plateaued. It's like we start to really feel this arrows kind of welling up in our chest and it has to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I think is great. It kind of keeps us moving forward, which is really cool. And even if it's only just in one small part of our lives, our
Yeah.
relationships or our work or our practice or what have you, there's always something sort of driving us forward, pushing us
Yeah.
forward,
Yep.
which makes these end of year reviews, I think, really sort of fruitful for
Yeah,
us.
definitely. And Corey, is it all right if I mention the new course a little bit in the context of this? Because
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
like, we can talk more specifically about it, but it's kind of like when we talk about this time of the year, this new program that we're offering is something near and dear to my heart. And so my experience of that process in this program is just super relevant. So I'm probably organically going to reference it, not so much to overplug it, but it's been the heart and depth of my own experience of this time of year. So it's hard to not talk about it. So this new course is called Emerge: How to Thrive in a World Gone Mad. And we can talk about that tagline there of like why that's relevant. But Corey, you brought up some good points here, and so a few points for me to get started in talking about this time of year and this reflective processing going forward is that it's so simple on a certain level, right? It's almost second nature and intuitive for us. We at least again in this culture for sure, like we just get in that space. But the simplicity of it can sometimes be deceptive. So we get to this time of the year and we just start doing something naturally, reflecting and looking forward. But the real question for me is always like, what is the process, and is it effective, to put it just really simply? And as integralists, as you mentioned, of looking forward, one of the things we can look past is our past. So we're looking so hard towards the future that we miss out on sort of consciously steeping ourselves in the past and gleaning insight from what has arisen in our past. And that includes everything: appreciating our difficult times, our struggles, and especially feeling and cultivating gratitude for all the good things, small and big. So I think for folks like us in an integral community, the slowing down part and diving and inhabiting the past can be often the challenging bit. But then there's also the challenging bit of looking forward and knowing how best to strategically take action and respond. So there's a whole bunch in those areas to discuss there. But I think it bears doubling down on the deceptive, simple obviousness of this process, so that way we can actually open it up to talk about it more.
Yeah.
And that's what this Emerge program is all about. It has that conscious process for inhabiting the past, aligning with the present consciously of what's most important to us, and then that looking forward in an effective way.
Yeah,
So
well, and I got to say, Ryan, you knocked it out of the park with this course. I mean, it's I've spent, you know, probably 40 of my last 48 hours getting it up
thank you,
on the
dude.
site, and I've just been totally immersed in it, and it's, I mean, it's really wonderful. Because
Thank
that's,
you.
yeah, no, that, because
And
that's one of the things, right? Is that we do, like I was saying, we feel this sort of reflective state kind of come naturally at the
yes,
end of every year. I mean, it's,
yep,
I think it's very common for us,
yep,
and then that state passes. And
yes,
along with it, all of those opportunities to sort of do the work that we, you
yeah,
know, we're really feeling inspired to do. We need a way to sort of follow through and to really make it
yes,
stick. And that's what I really appreciate about what you put
yes,
together here.
the follow through and the structure. So the thing is like, because we naturally gravitate towards being reflective and contemplative, and then also taking action, that's not so much a problem. There's not like the problem of lacking a spark, especially at this time of the year. That's where we usually have the sparks at the end and the beginning. So great, we have some energy moving. The problem is that we lack a structure often, a structure and a method that can hold us, that we can kind of let go into and know and trust that it's having us dive deeper into our experience and move us forward. So that's why I think when we get into it, it only lasts so long. Like maybe we only go so deep into our past, and we maybe hyper energetically, manically set some goals, and then, you know, we don't really experience the change or transformation we're looking for. But that's just simply because we don't have a nice structure and process. And so for me personally, I've done this Emerge process over several years now, and it's evolved every year into its current form. And it's evolved that way because I experienced that with myself. I would reflect and try to get the most out of my past and look forward. And I just kept running into, one, not having a system, which I don't like. You know, I need to have some sort of process to consciously do this. But then also finding out that as I looked back every year, you know, I could see what was working in that reflective process and what wasn't. And that's a huge deal. Once you have a nice structure like what I'm offering in Emerge, you can then start a cycle where you look at every single year and build upon it consciously, rather than being sort of like, you know, warp speed
Yeah.
and you know, the manic process. You know, there's not really a thread of continuity, which is really powerful in an embodied sense. That's the thing about that I want for people, and that I've tried to cultivate for myself, is an embodied experience of our past and where we're going, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what this show's all been about, you know, Inhabit, you know, it's in different domains. So we're applying it to this time of the year. And even though that this is potent for this time of the year, this is a process I use multiple times in a year. So often, at least one other time in the year, I'll feel a lot of things build up and a lot of things have changed, and I need to reorient myself in life. I need to kind of take stock of what's happened, take some patience, some openness and curiosity to say, okay, what's happened, including those tough, cold, you know, cold water in the face look at life, and saying like, okay, what is real? Like, even regardless of how I feel about it, what's real? And then, yeah, how do I feel about it? And then now, what do I want to do with that? So I actually do this process at least one other time a year, but also, you know, whenever I need it, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I'm so excited that I've finally been able to put it into form and share it with others, because it's been near and dear to my heart. So
Yeah, well, you know, I would say for one, you know, the Emerge course is, I think, deeply resonant with what we're doing here in Inhabit. I think it's sort of a natural expression, a natural extension of the kinds of conversations that we're trying to make a space for in this show. And it's really great.
mm,
And you know, one of the things I really appreciated about Ryan was not only did you bring a structure, but it was a structure that meets people sort of where they are. It's
yes,
customizable. You know, you've got these two practices
yes,
in there where you're basically doing a lifeboat exercise
yeah,
around a number of life domains and a number of values. And the you know, the list of values that you have people sort through,
yep,
I mean,
yeah.
there's
This
hundreds of them. And
that's
let me just real briefly,
yes, sir. Go
what's
ahead.
important about that is you're not just sort of dropping this monolithic structure onto people's head and saying,
Yes,
here are my values that I'm sort of infusing into this structure and you know, and plopping onto you. This
yes,
is more about how to discern, identify, and leverage my own values, my own unique constellation of values, as a way to give me that much more rocket fuel and to make these changes stick. So it's really working with my unique cosmic address.
Thank you. Yes, and I just want to double down on that point. That's very, very much the intention, and it's very important. So more of what I'm providing, similar to like having a kitchen, right? A kitchen doesn't tell you what to cook necessarily, but what tools you have in the kitchen is going to affect what you might cook. You know, like if you have a stove, a gas stove, a Vitamix, a food processor, mixing, automatic mixer kind of thing, you know, this provides you with more possibilities and structures. So definitely this is more about facilitating a process for people, not dictating what should arise. And actually, it's a key principle that I've emphasized a lot, you know, in this show, is that I'm really interested in having people inhabit their experience and notice what's there. And more deeply, I think that we inhabit our experience individually and together, the more likely we will to respond and to enact change, you know, one step at a time. So that's a big goal. And so anybody listening now, whether you're in the course or not, is like that. Super encourage that embodied approach. And what I would say too, for me, we've discussed meditations a lot in this program. We've done a few of them, sometimes the basic inhabiting of the body, and that is a very core meditation for anything I do. And I encourage people who listen to this show to like make that part of your repertoire in the Inhabit journey with us. I would say though, this Emerge program would be the other core piece that is just fundamental. So if anybody's following this show and really appreciates the conversation we're all having, and especially if you appreciate some of the things I've been sharing, that embodiment meditation and this Emerge process are like two of the biggest tools that everything else can be built upon and can arise out of. They just are so foundational. I've been really tickled and happy that we have this show, and the people who are listening to this really resonate with this journey of inhabiting.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. And just to sort of wrap up the infomercial
Yeah.
part of this show, you know, I just want to let people know, the other really cool thing is we're making this available at a very, very low price. This is very accessible to everyone. $50 for non-members, $40 if you're a member, because all members get an automatic 20% discount off of all of our courses and training programs. So this is, you know, sort of a no-brainer price.
And I really wanted that to be the case too.
Raquel says, cool, super thanks. Thank you for joining us again, Raquel.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
So yeah, what else do we want to talk about?
Well, I mean, we could go in a number of directions. I really love this time of the year for the very reasons we've been talking about. So we can explore any number of directions of looking at this inhabiting of the new year, of what's important.
Let's maybe bring it personal. Just
share, that's what we talked about. Yeah, that'd be great.
Maybe we can share just kind of what we're what's juicy for us right now.
Yeah.
You know, because I know that for me, as you know, whenever this time of year comes around, you know, I often like to reflect on just how much of me has changed from year to year. You know, and it's really nice actually being able to sort of see that with some clarity, and really trying to remember what the shape of my mind felt like. I mean, really felt like in previous years, and you know, some of those years it was pretty twisted and distorted. It's nice to be able to feel sort of more spaciousness, more deepening, and just more change, more you know, skill development and all that. This refinement of the separate self. I think it's valuable to be able to track that and to see how that sort of lands in your inner experience. But I also think you know, whenever I'm in sort of this life review mode, there's a part of me that also really wants to reflect on the part of me that hasn't changed. You know what I mean? The part of me that is the exact same today as it was last year, as it was 10 years ago, as it was 30 years ago. I mean, hell, as it was before I was born.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just this timeless, ever-present sort of being at the very center of things. And whenever we have these life reviews, it's always nice to check in with that too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a part of you
Yeah.
that remains kind of untouched by these changing patterns of
Yeah.
time and all of
Mhm.
that. And I think that sort of having this dual awareness, being able to follow
Yes.
both of these,
Yeah, that's
is
really
what
good.
it's what makes these changes that we want to do. You know, has that much more likelihood of actually sticking.
This is a really great point, Corey. I appreciate you bringing that up. And, along with that, my experience has been doing this kind of process that we've been discussing and doing it in a conscious way. I have a more ease. I've developed more ease around change over the years. That's one thing I would say is that um, because I've witnessed myself change so much in, some great ways, and then some that are just neutral, right? Just things change, like the body changes, right? But uh, yeah, there might have been a time in my life, where when change happened, it could be more disruptive. Whereas now, if taking that conscious look at my life every year, it's a little bit easier to roll through and say, yeah, of course things are changing. That's both part of the timelessness that things change, things are impermanent. And then, but that change matters as well. And we have to figure out how to deal with that in life. So just when you said that, I was just appreciating that in my mind. And that's part of what I've tried to encourage myself is like, okay, what can I appreciate? Because I tend to lead towards what is difficult. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
being honest. I see like what's hard, what do I want to change? And I don't spend as much time appreciating and being grateful. And that's been really important the last few years. So one of the things I was doing quite a lot was doing a gratitude journal, and very simple form, but it was really powerful for me to sort of balance that disposition. So even just doing this now, it's like, yeah, all right. You know, still things that are hard and that I want to have be different in life individually and collectively, but hey, a lot of good things have changed, and
Yep.
I can appreciate that. So yeah. Um, and I do like that dual integration there, and it's funny. I think in Emerge, I'm mostly focusing on what is changing, because that's really what a lot of people are dealing with. But that's also important is to recognize and steep in what is really deeply consistent, like not just over a year, but over many years. I was funny. My mind went to Enneagram earlier
Mm.
because I remember when I first found Enneagram, I first found typology systems, and that was super helpful just to have that other dimension in there where everything wasn't either reduced to a problem or tensions, especially relationally. Like, oh, we're different. Well, that one of us has to be wrong about that, right? Rather than no, we're just different. How to navigate that more skillfully in relationship and teams. But that was super potent to me for a while. And I mistyped myself too. Like I thought I was type 5 because everybody want to be type 5 when you got into Ken Wilber's community, right? Yeah, but but then my friend helpfully pointed out to me, like, I think you're an Enneagram 4. And I read that and I was like, shit, I think I am an Enneagram 4.
You a 4 with a 5 wing?
I think that floats for me, to be honest.
Okay.
I think it depends on the context. I think I probably by default would normally go 4-5, but I can get in. I've cultivated a 4-3.
It's funny because I was also mistyped. I was mistyped as a 6, and
Yeah.
then sort of retyped, and also I
Mm,
sort of self-typed as a 4.
uh-huh.
So this is the 4x4 club over here.
The 4x4 club over here. Yeah. But
We just wallow and languish.
yes, exactly. What's funny though is that nowadays there's been so much change around that and what that Enneagram system points to, that it's not as potent for me. It's not as relevant. I still appreciate it. I can always smell another 4. Like if we're in the same room, yeah, you're a 4. We can hang out, or we recognize each other. But it's not my edge now. Like that was my edge for a while, of like really coming to terms with my 4-ness, to work with some of those typical patterns. And then now that feels very relaxed. So it's interesting to me to watch how my perspective and what I focus on will change. So for a while, that was really big. That was super helpful for me because I didn't want to own some of the 4 parts of me, or also I wasn't able to appreciate some of the 4 parts. Like I was just thinking that wasn't a good part of me, and say, oh no, actually I can appreciate that. Great. But now it's sort of like neutral. It's like, okay,
Yep.
it's not a tool that I need 100% right now.
And you
Um,
might again in 5 years. I mean,
that's
that's sort
right.
of the cyclic nature of these things, is
Yeah, that's
that
right.
these
Maybe it
tools
comes back up and it's really useful.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and my experience with the Enneagram was actually very similar. I think it happens to a lot of us because whenever we find sort of this new typing sort of method, whatever it might be, we get very excited because it's like, ooh, what can this tell me about myself?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that oftentimes we kind of lose ourselves by going too far down that path, because for me, what has been, in recent years, what's been most valuable about things like the Enneagram isn't so much about, how can I learn about my own patterns and, so forth. It's
Mm-hmm.
about how can I cultivate the skillful means so that, my pattern can interface more skillfully with
Yes.
other people out
Yeah,
there.
totally.
That's the
Right.
point of the Enneagram is not, it's not to learn what you are, it's to learn what you aren't, right? So
Yeah,
that you
interesting.
can
Yeah.
be more and communicate more
Mm.
and sort of build more bridges and so forth. I
Yeah.
think so many people fall into this rabbit hole of self-typing, which becomes just sort of another form of navel gazing in a certain kind of way, and
Yeah,
it kind of missed the point.
that's definitely a thing that I look out for is I think that's it can be a phase. It's like the newness of a typology system that definitely reveals some interesting things that we hadn't seen before about ourselves and others. But then after a while, it can be a place where we just, kind of get stuck. And it's not that this is a bad place. It's just sort of like there's other things going on. There's other dimensions, as the integral map
Right.
shows. And the question is really for me always like, what's most up for me right now? And then also, I think this for me too, it's also allowing my focus to be on what is most important, so like even though as integralists we can see various maps, various models inside of Wilbur's work, but also outside there's just a lot of different perspectives and models and lenses, and that can get overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's so for me it's always about like, okay, what is really up for me right now, the most, but and doing like what we said, like looking back in the past year, and saying like, okay, yeah, what's been up. And of course obviously for me, like this collaboration, our friendship has been really uh
Yeah, man.
deeply meaningful. It's and also the people listening, it's been so lovely, like you and I had this idea for this show just organically, like it was what was up for us the most. It's what we felt, and we're like, let's do this, and we have no idea what people would think, or if they would resonate. But there's been a lot of folks who feel dialed into something very similar that we're all sharing. So I'm really deeply appreciative of that. I'm always just so touched to see comments or people finding meaning out of these shows. So appreciate all you listeners.
Yeah, no, I want to echo that. Both your gratitude for our listeners. I always say we have the best listeners. They have the best
Yeah,
questioner, the best questions, the best comments. They're so tuned in and dialed in, and I love being able to serve an audience like this, and it's been fantastic.
yeah,
And I also want to echo, just yeah, our sort of deepening friendship. You and I have known each other for a very long time.
yeah,
We've been sort of, acquaintances for a very long time. We're always very friendly with each other when we saw
yeah,
each other.
yeah.
And there's just been this pickup in the last year where I feel just this very deep kinship with you.
Likewise.
And I really, yeah, I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, I
And
appreciate
I'm
you
a guy who
too.
doesn't have, I don't have a lot of close friends. So like when one kind of makes it through
Yeah,
the,
we're similar that way. And maybe that's our Enneagram 4-ness and
I think so.
introvertness, but yeah, I'm the same way.
Yep.
We're-
So deep appreciation there.
yeah,
And I guess I want, but I want to move to
yeah,
looking forward in just a moment.
yep,
But I don't think we can do that until we fully
yeah, yeah,
addressed just sort of where we've coming from. And it
yep.
occurs to me, I haven't just, I want to simply ask, how's your year, man?
My year, it's been overall really rich, I would say, in a lot of ways. What's funny is I'm going to be sitting down to do my yearly deep emerge process, but I've already been reflecting. I think some of the things I've been most appreciative of is the opportunities like this that have come up in my life where I've been able to more fully step in and embrace opportunities. So through Awakening Life and Buddhist Geeks, I led some day-long retreats virtually earlier this year, and it was such a wonderful experience to work with people that way. The show came up, the Emerge courses come up. A training group I have for Awakening Life has enough people now, and it will be launching, and we're launching another training group. So there's this coalescing around a lot of this work that's really close to my heart. That's has taken a while to sort of build and nurture, and this year has felt like it's really blossomed in a beautiful way for me. And it's really interesting because that's quite different than like power productions and businessy kind of things like that, where
Yeah.
you can't rush a relationship. Like you can't rush our, like what we have for our friendship, you can't rush the cultivation of this show. It's just one episode at a time, and it's one conversation at a time. So those things that are important to me have just taken time to grow. But for me, that's been a big transition this year, is to really experience that. And I'm always really grateful in the moment. So it hits me pretty powerfully, but it'll hit me even more so when I sit down to do this and I really document for myself and be like, whoa, because I'm sure I'm like forgetting other experiences that have really added up to this. But I feel super grateful to be able to do any of this, to have this conversation, to create that course is just like, wow, okay, I got to take the time to do that. Even that alone is meaningful to me. So yeah, I guess that's something that's staying out for me. How about you, man? Like in this past year?
Yeah, this has been a hell of a year. First I'll say, my gratitudes. My daughter's been healthy all year long, which is,
Yeah.
at the very top of my gratitude. We just actually had they did a Make-A-Wish program where she was able to go and get Christmas presents for her family, which was really sweet that they do this. And, just sort of going back to Children's Hospital and seeing all the other kids who are struggling, it puts you in a space, you know what I mean, of deep gratitude and like, holy crap, this could have gone a very different direction. And just this heartbreaking kind of presence that you try to hold for so many of these other kids. And but you know what, when it comes to my family, my kid has been healthy. She's having a great year. She's thriving at school. So that is, at the very top of my list. That makes me happy.
Yay.
With career, I'm both grateful and proud that I've been able to find more comfort getting on this side of the camera and doing these shows. This has been a thing that's really picked up for me over the last year, is I'm just doing show after show after show, week after week.
Yeah.
And, when I first started doing this, I was a little, I was kind of afraid of like, I'm going to start doing this and then I'm just going to see our membership kind of fall off a cliff. And that didn't happen.
No, of course it didn't.
Which makes me really grateful. Other than that, I've started woodworking, which has become like this brand new sort of passion of mine that I'm fully throwing myself into. So that's been a new adventure for me. And just, being able to move from sort of, moving zeros and ones around on a computer screen to actually making something with my hands has been tremendously rewarding. So that's, I think that has been an expression of those parts of me that need to keep moving forward. I need a new hobby. I need something, a new holster for my consciousness. You know what I mean? A new place for me to kind of just set things down for a while. That's what, in a lot of ways, that's become for me.
Well, yeah, man, you've done a hell of a job. Like to just appreciate you, man, everything you've been doing, stepping up and out in Integral Life. And I'm sure so many people are listening, and people in the community will echo that. And like, even though I know you might have doubts and fears that have come up, like how you show up every day, it's beautiful, man. You've done a fantastic job. And I always think it was always you. It was always going to be you to be the person who's helping lead that community, just
by virtue of the fact that I've been able to hang on so long. 15 years later.
Yeah, but I'm so happy to see you on camera, and hear your voice. I think you bring a lot of heart to so much of this that is, can by default be really heady, but you merge that heart with the mind. So,
well, part of my practice right now in the moment is learning how to not deflect when someone compliments. So thank you. I work very hard.
You're very welcome. And talking about your daughter and your family, made me think that my partner Alyssa and her daughter Fiona, I love you all so much, and they're new in my life over this year. Even though I was trying to date Alyssa before then, she's huge. I mean, she's. And I'd say like that's been a new experience for me to kind of be in a role with a child. Like I don't have my own child, and my heart's just been cracked open, and there's things that I understand now from my friends who have kids where I'm like, oh, okay. You just can't experience unless there's somebody in front of you who you love and who melts your heart all the time.
Totally. And I love seeing those pictures on Facebook, man. It's a good look on you.
Yeah, thank you. They're so wonderful, and she's so cute, and it dials me into to your family and your experience, because I'm thinking about Alyssa and Fiona, and I'm thinking about our good friends Vince, Emily, and their son Xander, and so it's really wonderful. And I think for me too, that provides just naturally this deep, heart orienting place all year, no matter what's happening, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful because I've had the experiences of being really being an introvert and being quite both by choice being reclusive, but then sometimes not, to my own, against my own good intentions, being solo and feeling what that feels like when times are hard or when times are good. And so I it's funny sometimes with this work and with the big ideas and the passion, for me still, it's like, gosh, I'm happy with some of the most simple experiences now, where good friends, family, it's like, and maybe that's just part of the aging process.
I think they call that wisdom.
Yeah. I'm starting to get it. That's funny. That's one of the things I'm starting to get.
It's like, oh shit, all those cliches are true, aren't they?
I know. I totally, and I don't mind. I'm leaning into them.
Oh yeah.
I'm leaning into dad jokes hard.
So let's talk about where we're going, because we're at a big transition right now in so many ways. I mean, not only is this, we could have named this show Inhabit Your New Decade, right? Yeah. I mean, we're moving into a new year. We're moving into a new decade. We're in the midst of a really difficult impeachment process.
Yeah.
We are sort of at this economic crossroads between economic paradigms. I mean, we are just at this massive inflection point in history right now.
Yep.
And it's scary, it's unnerving, it's chaotic, and it's also really goddamn exciting. And I think especially as an integralist, it's really goddamn exciting. And, people have probably heard me say this several times. I think you and I have talked about this several times, about how Ken is simply a few decades ahead of his time in a certain kind of way.
Yeah,
right?
I would agree with that. Yep.
That he was providing solutions for problems that had not emerged yet. And guess what? Now these problems are here.
Yep.
And now these problems are aching for integral solutions.
Yeah. And that's why, so for me, that's why, as an example of a response, this show is what it is for me, because talking about Ken's work, when he put out SES, compared to now, so much of what he was pointing to is tangible now. Like you said, like there's an ache about it, to where by the force of reality, it's no longer a matter left to theory. Like we can't just leave it to theory. Like we're up against it every day and just being tossed about. And it's like, well, we got to figure out how to, we're being, I think, asked and compelled to transform, right? Like there's just no way around it. So, and what's interesting you said about it both being terrifying and exciting. I agree. I think for me personally, I see it as like, we're getting close to a sort of terrifying bottom. I don't know if we're like there yet, but it feels close to be where like, this fucking sucks. Like we've been feeling that for a while, but like,
I gotta be honest, I thought we were there in 2017, then I thought we were there again in 2018.
I hadn't felt that yet. I'll be honest, I hadn't said that yet. I know I'm like, it sucked. I said that, but I'm like, we're getting there. I don't know yet, but there's a theorist, I think he's a sociologist. I can't remember the name. Maybe you've heard of him. I think he's fairly well known, but he has a model of generational societal cycles, and it's actually called Four Turnings, which is kind of funny because Ken has the fourth turning of Buddhism, but this is different, where I'm going to get the stages wrong, but there's basically like a foundational stage, an awakening stage, kind of a simple cycle you expect, but one ends up being a crisis stage, and everything falls apart and is then rebuilt. And you can see it, these generational phases from like the last big one, similar to now, was the Great Depression. Mm-hmm. And then what happens after the Great Depression? You get, the 50s and the boom in the middle class, jobs, and it was like a kind of a golden age right then. And then you had after the JFK assassination up through the 80s, a focus on individualism, not the collective. Unraveling, I think that's one of the stages called. And then basically since 2008, we've been into this this crisis phase, and I can't remember what the third phase is. Maybe that's the unraveling. I'm getting them mixed up, but if you look Four Turnings and generational, If you Google that, you'll find this guy. But anyways, so it's both terrifying because we seem quite obviously in this crisis dismantling, deconstructing phase in order to deal with the crisis,
Yep.
in order to rebuild ourselves. But then by 2030, at least, this, and according to these models, we would be entering into a really awesome phase, you know? So that stuck with me. I just saw that guy the other day, and I was like, that feels about right, you know? So part of it's just like, damn, we got some more time in this heart aching and confusing, terrifying time. And yet I'm optimistic. You know, I have this foundational belief in humanity that we're going to rally and we're going to figure things out. It might take a little while, but we can be a part of that too. So for me, I've definitely been personally sitting with this, being like, how do I show up in this space? What's the best response? It's a question I sit with, you know, to both acknowledge and surrender, and the death, you know, the destruction, to just like be with that, to not go to naive optimism, but then not to be stuck in that and to be looking forward. So for me, I feel like that's super potent more than any other time, you know, like that tension in our society 20 years ago, I don't think it was that as potent as it is now.
That's right.
The pull in both those directions. So it's not really a direct answer, but it's like the process I'm sitting with on my end.
No, I think it's dead on, and I deeply relate with it. You know, it's as disruptive as it is out there. We feel it all in here.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we feel that disruption. We feel it in our online interactions. We talked about this a couple months ago with Inhabit Your Digital Life, and just sort of what social media has done in terms of this, you know, fragmentation and balkanization of all these different media bubbles, which leads to this sort of epistemic collapse where we can't agree on what knowledge is anymore.
Yeah.
What's more dangerous to a democracy than that? Which is full on, you know, I think Spiral Dynamics also has a term for this, which is something like the gamma trap, which is followed by the delta surge into a new stage of being. And it's exactly what we're seeing. And it also resonates really deeply with what Rob Smith has been talking about for years now with his Great Divide ebook. If you guys haven't read that, I highly encourage you check that out. It's on Integral Life in the Deep Dives section. But yeah, basically the idea being that we are between these sort of tectonic phases of sort of our economic self-organization. And, you know, just like you mentioned, you know, the stock market crash in 1929 was the end of one model, one economic model, which was the laissez-faire model.
Yep.
And then that brought us into sort of this Keynesian model that the New Deal was based on, and brought us a middle class in the 50s and 60s, as you were talking about.
Yep.
And then eventually that ran out of steam in the 1970s and was replaced by the neoliberal model, largely brought here with Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher. And we're still living in that shadow today. You know, I mean, arguably that economic model died in 2008 and is just living on as a zombie today, because one thing that the left has genuinely failed at is coming up with a new comprehensive economic model that can meet our needs in the 21st century. You know, Bernie, I think, is sort of more about taking us back to a more Keynesian kind of model, which is at least a breakaway from sort of the neoliberalism that we've been washed in. But, you know, we also know that Keynesian economics doesn't work for the 21st century because it requires you to consume more, and it really can't handle us consuming more. And
I think that's those failings are like what has really pushed us into a crisis phase of saying, like, listen, we've been trying all these different strategies and they're not getting it done, but the consequences are growing exponentially. So we're being pressured into like evolving, essentially. Like there's no way around it. So like when, you know, when the New Deal was put out, that's why there's all talk about a Green New Deal, regardless of it can debate details of such a thing. There's the sense of like, we're going to have something that's radically different and new. And that's partly what I feel like with my belief in humanity is that, like, I believe we'll tire ourselves out with the doubling down on what doesn't work until we're just surrendered, you know, like to say, oh, well, fuck it, I guess we don't have any choice but to do something different. And and another person I like who just wrote a new book called The Green New Deal is Jeremy Rifkin. He has some great he has a great video on talking about the fourth, is it called the fourth industrial revolution? But talking about totally different ways of looking at the economy, you know, with blockchain, with renewable energy, with zero waste, all kinds of interesting, robust approaches. So there's just a lot that we're figuring out right now, but I'm loving a lot of different ideas that I'm seeing. So I'm also trying to find myself in that, of being like, okay, where do I land? Because we're really figuring this out together, and it's going to be new. That's what I feel like. It's not going to be like a solution that already exists that we totally know. And the problem is not everybody's just adopted it yet.
That's right.
I think we do know about the issues. Like, I feel like a lot of us are really clear about certain issues and what needs to be addressed, and we're going to try things, but we're going to figure it out in real time. And the question is when we're going to get started. But luckily that theorist I told you about, it's Strauss-Howe generational theory.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And about that part of the crisis phase is mounting responses, actually. So like, it's not just all shit and then boom.
Right. Oh, did we lose Ryan?
Oh,
there he is.
Yeah, let me pause my my Dropbox. I think maybe that's part of it.
You went boonk, and the whole video went boonk.
It didn't like it. Yeah. So right. So basically, it's not just all bad and then now it's all changed and good. So like, that was kind of giving me motivation. I'm like, all right, I still don't know how much longer we have in like a just things not feeling like they're moving or changing, but we will get to experience the mounting response, and we will start seeing some progress, I believe, not too long, you know,
Yeah.
which will change the dynamic. Because I think right now there's just a lot of hopelessness, and for me, part of it, it's like figuring out how to be with that. So that's why I like focusing on embodiment, right? It's like,
Totally.
Okay, how can I keep coming back to presence, to what's happening right now, regardless of how it is? You know, that's just the capacity. And right now we're being tested to the max in resilience.
Yeah. Yeah. The kind of,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Okay.
Well, I was just going to say that kind of, I think, underlines the point that I was trying to make, which is that, you know, all of this is happening sort of outside of us. And oftentimes we feel sort of victim to it in a certain kind of way. I can't choose a new economic model for the, you know what I mean? I've got no control over climate change policy. I can't do these things. So what can I do? And this is actually why Diane and I started our new show, Integral Justice Warrior, so we can ask exactly that question. What is, well, as Vince often says, what is mine to do? Right?
Yeah.
Which has, ever since you sort of floated that a few episodes ago, that's become almost like a mantra that I repeat for myself. What is mine to do when it comes to this problem? What is a bite that I can take that is going to have some kind of impact?
You know, I like that question too, just as a more commentary on culture and communication, because we could be so overwhelmed by the meta crisis, because that's what we're in. We're in meta crisis, not just one thing. It's a whole global, various crises happening at once. It can be overwhelming. And one response is to just be like, fuck it, checking out, you know, boom, give me a box of Krispy Kremes and I'm out, you know, or something like that. Or the other is to get really hyper and intense and demand, I don't want to say demand change. Demanding change is what we need, but expecting too much from ourselves or any one person. Like, Corey, why aren't you on board with everything and all my solutions I have? Yeah. But to ask the question, what's mine to do, already paints the picture that, one, I can't do everything. I can't expect that you as an individual can do everything. And two, we need each other collectively to mount responses and enact change, especially on a societal and global scale. So I feel like that question is kind of nice to, I don't think it should limit it and say like, well, it's just individual solutions, but it helps paint the picture that, well, we're embodied, limited human beings, and yet we can still do something.
That's right. Yeah, I have no doubt, as you say, I have no doubt that by 2030, we're going to have achieved sort of this new level of cohesion, because that's just, you know, it's what we do. It's what the human species has done for millennia. We just sort of, you know, we focus, we disperse, we refocus, we disperse. I mean, it's kind of how this keeps moving forward in a certain kind of way. And I have no doubt that those solutions are going to be coming from a minimally teal altitude. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to be coming through, you know, Ken's work necessarily, or even the Integral Life community or anything like that. Though we are obviously trying to sort of, you know, shine some light on that territory for people, so that the people who are there don't feel quite so alone and quite so lost.
Yeah.
So we are trying to set up sort of a beacon for people at that altitude, but that doesn't mean that this is in any way going to come out of Aquil or Ken's work or anything like that.
Mm.
But it is, I think, going to be demonstrably teal level solutions that we arrive at the end of the day. Like you, I also have this sort of faith in emergence, right? But it's not a naive faith. It's a faith that makes plenty of room for all of the human suffering it's going to require for us to actually turn the page here. Because again, that's how we work.
Yeah, a couple of things relevant to that. One is that phrase "apocalyptimist," and I think that's true. And yeah, for me, it's always like, hey, I ain't gonna deny how shitty and terrifying and crazy it is. That's for sure. But I still believe. And a kind of crappy example that would be from capitalism, but it sort of has relevance is when you see a stock in a company, the company that is really sound, tanking. So like Tesla, let's say like Tesla, they've been a company that a lot of people believed in, but they had their stock go up and down. And really experienced stock traders will see that like when a stock is dropping a bunch and the price goes down too fast or too far, they start buying at the bottom because they know there's nothing else wrong with this. Like there's some problems that are being addressed here, but fundamentally Tesla's going to be a good company or whatever. So I'm going to buy because later it's going to be good. Also true is that if a price is going up really, really high, idealism, people start selling because they're like, oh, this is not, we're getting overly idealistic. I feel something similar to humanity where like we've had times where we've been super idealistic and it's like, there are going to be another crisis. Like even if we get through this one, most likely we're going to have another kind of flavor of crisis in the future, decades later. But right now, like if I were buying stock in humanity, I'd be buying. Like I'm like, it looks shitty, but as the term is called, cost averaging. It's like you just keep going down and like I feel like we'll make our way out of it.
Well, thanks for your neoliberal analogy.
I know. I acknowledged it. The metaphor works. I'm sorry. It embraces it and it exacerbates the crisis, but the metaphor works.
Well, I say this is the time for us to rally, for all of us like-minded, like-hearted people to really rally in a way that I don't think we've seen since, when Integral Naked launched in 2003, 2004, which was another one of these big sort of congregations. I mean, a lot of people showed up when that happened because it was new, it was fresh, it was exciting.
I remember that. It was fun.
Yeah, it really was. And I think it's time for that to happen again. I want this next decade to be not just the roaring 20s, but the fucking roaring integral 20s, right? And in order for that to happen, that requires us individually to do exactly this work, to embody. I mean, again, all the cliches are true. We need to be the change we want to see in the world.
Yeah.
And that is, I mean, even more true for sort of integral modes of being than anything else. If you want to start seeing this unfold in a healthy, responsible, sustainable way, then you need to exemplify those values yourself, or do the very best you can to exemplify those values yourself, to really, take them in and to, recognize where you might need more skill development, where you might, just areas where you can make a deeper impact. And because I tell you, if you thought 2016 was crazy, that's nothing compared to what's coming down the road just in 2020. Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way around. I think that's the thing. Like, regardless of how much more intense the crisis and pain will get, or when we finally start getting the change, but I don't think there's any way around it, that it's going to be radical, and radical is disruptive, even if we're like welcoming it. But, as we're kind of been talking about, like, the phrase that, no pain, no gain isn't true. That's just like a really bad habit to like say, oh, I got to suffer in order to gain. Nope. That's a particular attitude. But it's very common that in deconstructing, when things fall apart, that's out of that is what comes new solutions, and so for me, sometimes I would always, anytime I'm in like a crisis kind of thing, whether personal or collective, I would rather push a button and just make it all better. Like if that was an option, I'd do it. Yep. Like most therapists and psychologists, if they could push a button to make you happy, they would do it, but it's just not possible. So, for me, like dropping in and saying like, okay, how can I be with this in a skillful way? There's something purifying about a crisis that's already here. Like there's something that sort of burns out what isn't useful anymore to allow space. Actually, that's what the Strauss, I forget which guy it is, who I saw, Strauss-Howe generational theory. He talked about these cycles and saying like, this crisis cycle isn't an evil thing. It's part of almost like a natural cycle, much like forests sometimes will burn, because for the health of the forest, although we know we're seeing a lot of forests burn due to climate change and things like that. But it's weird because it's counterintuitive to start seeing wisdom like that in painful moments, which traditions like, Buddhism might do in a contemplative way. But there's some making sense out of it for me in that way, to move forward. What's really interesting, side note, Vince had told me that apparently Steve Bannon likes this guy, which is really odd because when I saw a video on this guy, I would be like, why would Steve Bannon think that? There's nothing that indicates why that guy would like this. The only thing that we could think about though is he might see himself as a protagonist in this crisis thing, much like what's the antagonist in Marvel, the snap of your finger guy?
Oh, Thanos.
He might see himself as literally like a Thanos, like Thanos sort of say, oh, we need to clear things out. But that's
Bannon's a smart dude. I don't line up with his values in pretty much any way whatsoever, but he is a smart dude, and he's done a lot of work that is also resonant with what Rob Smith has written in The Great Divide.
It's interesting.
Does see these cycles, and I think what Bannon is doing is he's inviting people to find ways to take opportunity of these cycles, to take opportunity of this natural kind of disintegration.
That makes a lot of sense.
That we're in right now.
Yep. Well, this is interesting. I think this is like really on point. We just kind of naturally found our way here, but it's funny for the Emerge course. That's the line we landed on to describe it, like how to thrive in a world gone mad, and like. That isn't a line that we thought, well, let's just create something sensational. It's just sort of like humbling that it's humbling that that's how the world feels right now. So to have this bigger conversation about how it feels as we reflect on this past year and get ready to go in this 2020 year that in the United States, for sure, no matter what, is going to be a ride. What I mean? It is going to be a crazy ride. So it's like, feels even more potent to take time to take a step back and to look forward at how we're going to orient ourselves in the world and how we're going to respond, because the stakes are much higher now. It feels like, anyways.
Yeah, amen. Something clearly wants to emerge right now, and guess what? It can only emerge through you. That's the only place it has to go. It can only emerge through you. These things, when we talk about things like having a faith in emergence, it's not just something that happens spontaneously outside.
Yeah, and it's not a passive. Yeah,
it's not passive. It is an active process. It is a participatory process. If something is going to emerge, it's because it is going to be emerging through every one of us individually. And so every one of us individually needs to figure out what our responsibility is in terms of how we align ourselves with this. Big things are afoot.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yep. So again, guys, the course is called Emerge, integrallife.com/emerge. For the next 3 hours, you can get 50% off. You can get it for $25.
Yeah, I hope it's helpful.
$20 if you're a member. So again, that's only for the people who are watching us live. I'll edit this out of the final video. So let's maybe open this up for any questions that anyone have.
Sounds good.
We got a few attendees in Zoom with us already. If you guys have any questions, you can either hit the raise my hand button. We'll turn your camera on. We'll have some back and forth. Or you can hit the Q&A button, send in a written question. If you don't have any questions, it's okay too. Don't feel pressured, guys. It's only the entire universe trying to emerge like an alien from your chest.
Yeah.
Right.
I should have tried to work that metaphor in my course.
Raquel says, hello, I would like to comment. Raquel, we would like you to comment. Do you want us to turn your camera on? If so, press the raise my hand button. In the meantime, do you have any New Year's plans?
I will be going to Kansas City, where I'm from, and spending some time with my family there. So usually I've been going there over Christmas, but this year I will be waking up with Alyssa and Fiona on Christmas morning, which will be fun.
Magical.
And yeah, so I got to celebrate that with my aunts and my Uncle Eddie. So it'll be just at home having a good time. How about you?
Nice. Same. I'm a family man now, so I don't do anything for the holidays except hang out with them, which is fine by me. Because you know what? I have a legacy of just like truly anticlimactic New Year's Eve celebrations. So I just don't even do it anymore.
Yeah, I've not really done many super, party New Year's Eve things. I've done a couple, but a lot of times it's just simple at home. Right. I do like to stay up till midnight. I feel blasphemous to not make it through the New Year's.
I go to bed at 3 a.m. every night anyway, so.
So right, you're good.
We've got Raquel here. Hey, Raquel, I'm going to unmute you. Maybe you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, you're still muted. Can't hear.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, there you go. Yep.
Hello, hello.
Hey, Raquel.
It's good to be here with you again, guys. I mean, so interesting chat. It's wonderful. I would love to be around people like you, but unfortunately in my country, and above all, in the middle of the place where I am in the close to the beach, is only like old, expats.
Right.
Anyway, it's good. That's why I need these moments of.
Hey, same. I mean, Corey and I live very far apart actually out here. I mean, we live more than, it'd be at least two or three European countries between us. So this is how we connect.
Those are the same states though. That's not saying much.
Yeah, but exactly. You see, it is true that it's needed to connect in this way with like-minded and like-hearted and soul-hearted people. Because if not, it's like something that arrives to a point where, I just have to explode.
Yeah,
that's right.
Absolutely. So that's why I connect with you all to be like close to this. And I wanted to comment about this idea that you were talking about for the new year. And what to do and how to see it. And I was thinking all the time because I have been brought up as a Catholic, and then this idea of the baby born new Jesus, okay, the idea of the birth, you see, which is a very interesting point of view of giving birth, because of all the things that are coming to us, as you have been very well speaking, which may seem really terrifying. What does a mother does whenever is going to give birth?
Yeah.
The best thing that she can do to help is to relax.
Right.
The best thing she can do to have that baby through the channel of birth is to relax. It's flexibility and relaxing, the two words that will be like very good to listen and to embody and to inhabit.
It's a great metaphor because it's, at least my memories of when my daughter was born, it was this oscillation, right? Relax, push, relax, push.
Yeah, so
that's what we need right now.
Wisdom of the mom.
We need that, which is a feminine and a masculine type of energy that we have to put there. So, and to be consciously doing that, two-way movement of relaxing and then pushing. But it's a real birth that we are going to give in the new year, because this 2020 is like the dances are starting in 2020.
Yep. Maybe this is something that is just sort of in the blind spot for a lot of men, because like when my kid was born, I didn't have to push, and I sure as hell couldn't relax.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a foreign language to me.
Yeah.
The push is the masculinity that needs to push,
right,
and really be there in the strong energy to push, and then relax, which is the feminine, and openly and relax, and how would I say, flexibility of relaxing, like accepting what is going on to help the process.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's
Thanks
really
for sort of evoking that polarity. It is an important polarity, and it's one that we certainly need.
Yeah, it's interesting. In the meditations that are in Emerge, I actually use a technique that lines up with that, where there's resting and then engaging, and then resting and engaging. So that metaphor and that wisdom of the mother, that's beautiful. I'm so glad you brought that in here.
Okay.
Raquel, thank you so much for calling in today. It was good to see you.
Okay, good to see you too, guys. Thank
Nice
you.
to see you.
Well, if there's no other questions, dude, this has been great.
This has been really fun.
Yeah,
I loved where this went and where it sort of naturally, organically found its way.
I'm feeling a little more amped up for 2020.
Yeah.
And a little more appreciative for 2019.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate everybody tuning in.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Ryan, we'll pick this up next decade.
Well, next decade. See you in the next decade, everybody.
See? The dad jokes abound.
Just you wait. More dad jokes coming in the new year.
Until then, thank you everyone for joining us. Quick reminder, integralife.com/emerge. The course costs $50, $40 for members. There we go.
Awesome.
So thank you everyone for joining us, and we will talk to you next time.
Okay. Thank you all.